After the absolute tragedy at Robb Elementary, a really huge question is being asked in a court of law. Can a police officer actually be found guilty, not for something they did, but for something they failed to do? This is what the trial of Adrian Gonzales, the very first officer charged in the massacre, is all about. And believe it or not, the entire case hangs on just a few chaotic minutes. So to get what's happening in this trial, we've got to understand the timeline. That's what Officer Adrian Gonzales pleaded. He's facing 29 identical counts of child endangerment. Basically, one count for every single person who is inside rooms 111 and 112. And the accusation? That he endangered their lives because he failed to act when he should have. So, what exactly does this charge mean? Let's break it down. The prosecution isn't saying that Gonzales hurt anyone directly. Nope. Instead, their whole case is built on what's known as a crime of omission. The argument is pretty simple. As a police officer, he had a legal duty to protect those kids. They claim he had a window and opportunity to step in, and that his failure to do so was, in itself, a criminal act. So, to build their case, prosecutors started by painting this incredibly specific picture of the first 2 minutes of the attack. Their goal was to convince the jury that the officer knew exactly what was happening and exactly where it was happening right from the start. The morning of May 24th, 2022, things just spiral into chaos. It starts with a truck crash. A minute later, there's gunfire. Then, a teacher, Melody Flores, is rushing kids to safety, and when she turns back, she comes face to face with a gunman. He fires at her. She falls, but then she gets back up. It's a miracle, really. And right then, at that exact moment, she sees Officer Gonzales arriving on the scene. And this moment, right here, this is the absolute heart of the prosecution's case. They say the teacher gave Gonzales direct, actionable intel. The shooter's location, his description, everything he needed to know. The message was clear, right? Here he is, here's what he's wearing, go get him. According to them, he knew. And the prosecution just hammers this point home again and again with this one simple phrase. They said, as the gunman was outside, firing into classroom windows, quote, Adrian Gonzales remains. As he moved down the building and went in the west door, quote, Adrian Gonzales remains. You see what they're doing? This refrain is meant to paint a picture of a continuous, conscious choice not to engage. Okay, so that's the story the prosecution is telling. But, a story is one thing. Physical evidence? That's another. And this is where the defense really starts to push back, using the FBI's own crime scene analysis to poke holes in that story. So it all boils down to this one question. If the gunman was firing at people on the south and east sides of the school, like the teacher said, where are the bullet casings? Because at the end of the day, evidence tells its own story. And this, right here, is a huge problem for the prosecution's narrative. An FBI agent got on the stand and testified that his team did a painstaking search of the entire area. They found plenty of bullet casings, but only on the west side and the southwest corner of the school. On the east side and the south grounds, the very place where the teacher claimed she was shot at, they found nothing. Zero. So the defense jumps on this. They say, look, if all the casings are over on the west side, what does that tell you? It suggests the gunman was firing at the building from that direction, not shooting at witnesses over on the south side. And that raises a massive question. From where Officer Gonzales was standing, what could he actually see and what could he possibly know? And then everything changes. The game completely shifts. The gunman isn't outside anymore. He's in the school. And that creates this whole new and, frankly, much more dangerous tactical problem for the officers on scene. At 11:33 a.m., the shooter gets inside the building and just unleashes a hail of gunfire, something like 20 rounds, right down the main hallway. He then forces his way into those adjoining classrooms, 111 and 112. For the officers still outside, the fight had just moved indoors. Okay, so this is where we need to talk about a really key concept in police tactics. A Texas Ranger testified about something called the fatal funnel. Think about it. Any doorway, any hallway, it's a choke point. It's a death trap, basically, because it funnels you into a narrow space where you lose all your peripheral vision, making you an incredibly easy target for someone waiting on the other side. And that same Texas Ranger, on the witness stand, said something that really sums up the whole defense argument. He explained that officers are trained specifically not to just rush one by one into a room where a shooter is waiting, because, as he put it, a dead police officer doesn't help anybody. So the defense argues that any hesitation wasn't a failure. It was a trained response to a deadly situation.
Okay, so let's put this all together. We've got a timeline of what happened outside that's now in dispute. And we have this massive tactical problem of the fatal funnel inside. So, how does all of this connect back to that charge of child endangerment by omission? Well, it all comes down to the burden of proof.
Look, for the prosecution to get a conviction, they have to check all these boxes, beyond a reasonable doubt. They have to prove Gonzalez knew exactly where to go. They have to prove he had a clear, safe opportunity to do something. And they have to prove he actively chose not to. And that's the kicker. If you can poke holes in that timeline, you poke holes in the idea that he ever had a clear opportunity to act in the first place.
What this whole trial really boils down to is this. In a case about not doing something, the timeline isn't just a detail. It's the whole ballgame. The focus isn't just on the horror of what happened, but on the tiny, second-by-second details of what an officer could have known, and therefore what we could have reasonably expected him to do.
And all of this leaves us with this huge, really difficult question that this trial is trying to answer. A question that goes way beyond just this one officer. In the absolute fog of war of a mass shooting, with gunfire echoing everywhere and chaos all around, where do you draw that precise line between a tactical pause and criminal negligence? Whatever the jury decides here, well, the echoes of that decision are going to be felt for a very, very long time.